23:41 hours local time. The night sky over Tehran erupted into a chaotic web of surface-to-air missile fire. Air defense sirens screamed across the Iranian capital as radar screens lit up with unidentified contacts. 20 minutes of pure, unadulterated panic. But those were not Israeli fighter jets dropping payloads. Not yet. They were ghosts. Electronic decoys testing the reaction time of a terrified regime. Run the numbers with me. Within a single 24-hour window, the United States military quietly unloaded 6,500 tons of bunker-busting munitions onto Israeli tarmac. That is 13 million pounds of high explosives. For context, that is enough firepower to level every IRGC command center in the Middle East 3 times over. And the clock is ticking. 21 miles of water in the Strait of Hormuz are currently choked off by an aggressive Iranian naval blockade. That is 20% of the world's daily oil supply completely paralyzed. Global energy markets are bleeding billions of dollars every single hour. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard thinks they hold all the cards. They believe their anti-ship missiles and swarm boats have created an impenetrable fortress. But here is what nobody tells you. The Pentagon is not planning a proportional response. They are planning a decapitation strike. Inside the Oval Office, the atmosphere is absolutely radioactive. U.S. Central Command Chief Admiral Brad Cooper and Joint Chiefs Chair General Dan Kane just delivered a classified briefing to President Donald Trump. The contents of that briefing would make any military strategist sweat. Iran has moved its heavy ballistic missile launchers out of range of the U.S. Army's precision strike missiles. They pushed their launch systems deep into the Zagros Mountains. They think they are safe. They are wrong. CENTCOM just submitted an emergency request for the immediate deployment of hypersonic missiles to the Middle East theater. We are talking about weapons that travel at Mach 5. That is 3,800 miles per hour. At that speed, an Iranian radar operator has exactly 4 minutes to realize he is dead before the mountain collapses on top of him. But the hypersonic request is just a distraction from the real nightmare unfolding in the Persian Gulf. What they did not know was that a much darker plan was already in motion. Look closer at the recent Axios intelligence leak. The Pentagon is not just planning airstrikes from a safe distance. They are preparing to put American boots on the ground. A highly classified proposal involves deploying U.S. ground forces to physically seize control of a strategic portion of the Strait of Hormuz. Think about that for a second. American Marines landing on hostile shores to forcibly reopen commercial shipping lanes. This is not a surgical strike. This is a massive, violent amphibious assault against heavily fortified Iranian coastal defenses. The IRGC has spent 2 decades preparing for exactly this moment. They have laced the coastline with thousands of smart mines and anti-ship cruise missile batteries. But the American strike groups are not sailing in blind. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group brings 5,000 American sailors and a terrifying air wing of F-35C Lightning II stealth fighters. Each F-35 costs $100 million. They are flying supercomputers armed with precision-guided death. And that was the moment everything changed. While the world watches the Strait of Hormuz, Israel is quietly preparing the real hammer blow. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz just issued a chilling warning. He stated Israel is prepared to resume its war on Iran immediately. Negotiations have completely stalled. Pakistan attempted to mediate peace talks, but those efforts collapsed into dust. Israel is not waiting for permission anymore. The Israeli cabinet has authorized a secret directive to cripple Iran's nuclear infrastructure in a single devastating 24-hour window. We are talking about simultaneous strikes on the Natanz and Fordo enrichment facilities. Fordo is buried deep inside a mountain. Standard munitions cannot scratch it. But remember those 6,500 tons of American bombs that just landed in Israel? Those include GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators. Each bomb weighs 30,000 pounds. They can punch through 200 feet of solid reinforced concrete before detonating. But here is the terrifying catch. Iran knows the strike is coming. Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei just stood before national television and vowed to protect their nuclear and missile technologies at all costs. He called them irreplaceable national assets. The regime is terrified, and fear makes them unpredictable. Inside Tehran, the government is tearing itself apart. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian and Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf are actively trying to purge their own foreign minister. They want Abbas Araghchi gone immediately. Why? Because Araghchi is taking direct orders from the Revolutionary Guard. The IRGC has completely hijacked Iran's foreign policy. They want a war. They want to drag the United States into a bloody, unwinnable quagmire. But the Pentagon has a countermove that nobody saw coming. The Trump administration just executed a brilliant and ruthless legal maneuver. They formally declared that historical hostilities with Iran have officially terminated. Why would they do that right before a massive strike? It is a calculated legal trap. By citing the extended April 7th ceasefire, the White House just bypassed the 60-day congressional war powers deadline. This means the commander-in-chief has absolute unrestricted authority to order a massive preemptive strike without waiting for Congress to debate it. The legal chains are off. The military machine is fully unleashed. And Israel is watching closely. The IDF just spent the last 24 hours dismantling over 40 Hezbollah terror infrastructure sites in southern Lebanon. They are systematically blinding Iran's proxy forces. They are clearing the chessboard before the main event begins. But what happens when the first bomb actually drops? Imagine the first 60 seconds of the strike. It will not start with explosions. It will start with silence. American and Israeli cyber warfare units will completely blind Iran's air defense grid. The Russian-made radar screens will simply go blank. 10 seconds later, the sky will tear open. F-35 stealth fighters will systematically execute Iran's early warning radar stations. Once the door is kicked down, the heavy bombers enter the airspace. F-15I Strike Eagles carrying those 30,000-pound bunker busters will drop their payloads precisely over Fordow. The ground will shake like a massive earthquake. In a matter of minutes, 20 years of Iranian nuclear development will be vaporized into radioactive dust. But Israel will not stop at the nuclear sites. The cabinet ministers have already signaled the next targets. They are going after the money. They will strike Iranian gas and energy facilities. They will obliterate the Karg Island oil terminal. That terminal handles 90% of Iran's crude oil exports. If Karg Island burns, the Iranian economy instantly collapses. The currency will become worthless paper overnight. The regime will have no money to pay the Revolutionary Guard, no money to fund Hezbollah, no money to buy weapons from Russia. It is a total economic death sentence delivered from 30,000 feet. UAE Presidential Advisor Anwar Gargash just confirmed the diplomatic reality. He stated that no unilateral Iranian arrangements regarding the Strait of Hormuz can ever be trusted again. The Arab world is quietly stepping back. They are letting Israel and the United States take the shot. They know the Iranian threat must be neutralized permanently, but the IRGC will not die quietly in the dark. This is where the nightmare scenario truly begins. If Iran's nuclear program is destroyed, they have nothing left to lose. They will unleash their entire ballistic missile arsenal. We are talking about thousands of Shahab-3 and K-Bar Buster missiles raining down on Tel Aviv, Haifa, and American bases across Iraq and Syria. The U.S. Navy will be the only shield standing between those missiles and thousands of American casualties. Arleigh Burke-class destroyers will fire dozens of SM-6 interceptors. Each SM-6 costs $4.3 million. They will be swarmed by cheap Iranian drones costing barely $20,000 each. For every dollar Iran spends on a suicide drone, the American taxpayer will spend $215 to shoot it down. It is a brutal, unsustainable mathematical reality. The missile defense magazines will eventually run dry. And when they do, American ships will have to rely on their phalanx close-in weapon systems. A wall of depleted uranium bullets firing at 4,500 rounds per minute. It is the absolute last line of defense. But look closer at the naval deployments. Israel and the United States are actively coordinating to project a credible naval threat against Iran. They are massing firepower in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Arabian Sea. This is not just a show of force. This is a heavily armed blockade designed to trap Iran inside its own borders. The 5,000 American sailors aboard these vessels know exactly what is at stake. They drill for this exact scenario every single day. let us break down exactly what 6,500 tons of munitions looks like. It requires a massive logistical bridge of C-17 Globemaster transport planes flying back-to-back sorties across the Atlantic. Each flight costs American taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars in jet fuel alone. They are not shipping small arms ammunition. They are shipping joint direct attack munitions. They are shipping BLU-109 hard target penetrators. They are shipping the exact specific tools required to dismantle a heavily fortified subterranean military-industrial complex. The Pentagon does not move 6,500 tons of specialized bunker-busting equipment unless somebody is about to press the red button. Run the numbers on the Strait of Hormuz with me. It is a narrow, treacherous choke point. At its narrowest, the shipping lanes are only 2 miles wide in either direction. Giant oil supertankers carrying 2 million barrels of crude oil each are forced to navigate this tiny strip of water. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard operates a massive fleet of fast attack craft hidden in hundreds of small coves and inlets along the northern shore. They are armed with Zulfiqar anti-ship missiles. These missiles have a range of 430 miles and carry a 200-pound warhead. A single hit would crack a supertanker in half, spilling millions of gallons of toxic crude oil into the Persian Gulf and instantly crashing the global stock market. The economic devastation would be felt in every single American household within 48 hours. Gas prices would skyrocket. Supply chains would freeze. That is why the blockade is an act of war. That is exactly why the Axios leak regarding U.S. ground forces is so terrifying. The Pentagon realizes that air power alone cannot secure a 2-mile-wide shipping lane. You need boots on the ground to clear the coastal missile batteries. You need Marine Force recon units to infiltrate the Zagros Mountains and paint targets for the F-35s. You need Navy SEALs to disable the underwater smart mines before the carrier strike group can safely transit the strait. A ground invasion of the Iranian coastline would be the most complex amphibious operation since the Battle of Inchon. It would require overwhelming naval gunfire support. It would require complete air supremacy. And it would require a level of political willpower that Washington has not demonstrated in decades. But the War Powers Declaration changes the entire calculus. And what about the hypersonics? General Dan Kane knows that standard Tomahawk cruise missiles fly at subsonic speeds. A Tomahawk takes over an hour to travel 500 miles. In that hour, Iranian mobile launchers can fire their payload and disappear into a reinforced tunnel. You cannot kill what you cannot catch. Hypersonic glide vehicles change the math of modern warfare. They fly in the upper atmosphere, skipping along the edge of space, maneuvering unpredictably to evade air and missile defenses. When CENTCOM requested hypersonics, they were telling the president that standard American weapons are no longer fast enough to stop the Iranian ballistic missile threat. They need a weapon that can strike any target in the Middle East in under 10 minutes. They need the ultimate sniper rifle. But the most dangerous variable in this entire equation is not American technology. It is Iranian desperation. Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei is sitting on a powder keg. His own government is fracturing. President Masoud Pezeshkian is a pragmatist. He knows a direct war with the United States, and Israel will end with the complete destruction of the Iranian state. He is trying to purge Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi to regain control of the diplomatic backchannels. But the Revolutionary Guard will not let that happen. The IRGC answers only to the Supreme Leader. They control the guns. They control the missile silos. They control the nuclear enrichment facilities. They are a state within a state, and they are begging for a fight. They believe their own propaganda. They believe they can absorb an Israeli first strike and counterattack with overwhelming force. To understand how isolated Iran has become, look at what the IDF just did in Lebanon. In just 24 hours, Israeli forces completely dismantled over 40 Hezbollah terror infrastructure sites. They destroyed underground command centers. They vaporized weapons depots. Hezbollah was supposed to be Iran's ultimate insurance policy. They were supposed to be the dagger pointed at Israel's throat, ready to launch 150,000 rockets if Iran was ever attacked. But Israel did not wait. They systematically amputated Iran's strongest proxy arm. Hezbollah is currently in absolute disarray. Their communication networks are compromised. Their leadership is dead or hiding in deep tunnels. Iran is watching its billion-dollar investment in Lebanon evaporate in real time, and the rest of the Middle East is simply watching them burn. Anwar Gargash, the UAE presidential advisor, made it abundantly clear. The Gulf Arab states are done playing games with Tehran. They have watched Iran fund Houthi rebels in Yemen. They have watched Iran attack Saudi oil facilities. They have watched Iran pirate commercial shipping in the Gulf of Oman. When Gargash said no unilateral Iranian arrangements can be trusted, he was giving Israel a diplomatic green light. He was saying, if you are going to take out their nuclear program, do not expect us to stand in your way. The regional isolation of Iran is absolute. Even Pakistan, a fellow Islamic republic with its own nuclear arsenal, failed to mediate a de-escalation. The diplomatic doors are welded shut. So how does the 24-hour crippling strike actually unfold? Run the timeline with me. 0 hour -6. American RC-135 rivet joint reconnaissance aircraft begin aggressively probing Iranian airspace, soaking up electronic emissions and mapping the exact frequencies of their air defense radars. 0 hour -2. Israeli cyber units inject malicious code into the Iranian military intranet, specifically targeting the programmable logic controllers of their anti-aircraft batteries. 0 hour. The skies over the Persian Gulf fill with hundreds of combat aircraft. F-35s fly in complete radio silence, their radar cross-sections no larger than a golf ball. They slip past the S-300 and S-400 batteries completely undetected. Their first targets are the Bavar 373 air defense systems protecting Tehran. The F-35s drop small-diameter bombs, precision-guided munitions that glide silently to their targets. Before the Iranian operators even realize they are under attack, their radar dishes explode into shrapnel. The sky is now open. The heavy hitters move in. Israeli F-15s, heavily modified to carry massive payloads over extreme distances, unleash the bunker busters. But they do not just drop one bomb. They use a tactic called sequential penetration. They drop 2 massive ordnance penetrators on the exact same GPS coordinates. The first bomb blows a massive crater deep into the mountain rock. Milliseconds later, the second bomb flies directly into that crater, penetrating even deeper before detonating against the reinforced concrete of the Fordo enrichment halls. The underground centrifuges are instantly crushed by millions of tons of collapsing rock. But destroying the nuclear program is only half the secret plan. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz knows that if you leave the regime with money, they will simply rebuild. That is why the cabinet ministers authorize strikes on the energy infrastructure. The Karg Island oil terminal is a sprawling complex of massive storage tanks and loading docks. It is highly flammable and impossible to defend against a saturated missile attack. When the cruise missiles hit Karg Island, the resulting firestorm will be visible from space. Millions of barrels of burning crude oil will turn the sky black. The economic heartbeat of the Islamic Republic will stop instantly. And what is the United States doing during this 24-hour window? They are playing defense on a massive scale. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, along with multiple Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, are positioned to intercept the inevitable Iranian retaliation. When Iran realizes their nuclear sites are gone, they will launch everything they have. Hundreds of ballistic missiles will arc into the stratosphere, heading for American bases in Iraq, Syria, and across the Gulf. Inside the Combat Information Center of an American destroyer, the radar screens will turn red with incoming threats. The Aegis combat system will automatically track and prioritize the targets. The ship will begin launching SM-3 and SM-6 interceptors. Remember the math of danger. Each SM-6 interceptor costs $4.3 million. It is a brilliant piece of engineering, capable of hitting a bullet with a bullet in the vacuum of space. But a destroyer only carries around 90 vertical launch cells. And not all of them hold interceptors. Some hold Tomahawks. Some hold anti-submarine rockets. If Iran launches a swarm of 200 ballistic missiles mixed with thousands of cheap decoy drones, the American ships will simply run out of ammunition. They call it a magazine depletion scenario. It is the absolute worst-case nightmare for a naval commander. You can have the most advanced radar in the world, but if your missile tubes are empty, you are just a multi-billion-dollar floating target. When the interceptors run dry, the ship's survival depends entirely on the Phalanx CIWS, the close-in weapon system. It is an automated, radar-guided Gatling gun that fires 20mm tungsten armor-piercing rounds. It sounds like a massive chainsaw tearing through the sky. But the Phalanx only has an effective range of about 1 mile. If a hypersonic missile is coming in at Mach 5, the Phalanx has literally fractions of a second to track, engage, and destroy the threat before the ship is vaporized. 5,000 American sailors are betting their lives on those fractions of a second. This is why the Pentagon is in a state of absolute panic. They know that Israel's secret plan to cripple Iran in 24 hours is tactically brilliant, but strategically apocalyptic. If Israel strikes, America will be dragged into the ensuing chaos. There is no scenario where Israeli F-15s bomb Iranian nuclear sites and the U.S. Navy simply watches from the sidelines. The 6,500 tons of munitions have already been delivered. The hypersonic missiles have been requested. The war powers deadline has been bypassed. The diplomatic channels have completely collapsed. The chessboard is set, and the pieces are already moving. We are no longer talking about a hypothetical geopolitical scenario. We are talking about an imminent military collision that will permanently alter the balance of power on planet Earth. But here is the final question you have to ask yourself. If the United States ground forces do invade the Strait of Hormuz, and Israel successfully vaporizes the Iranian nuclear program, what will Russia and China do when their most important Middle Eastern ally is wiped off the map? Beijing and Moscow are not going to sit idly by while Washington dictates the terms of a new global order. For China, Iran is not just a strategic partner. It is the vital energy artery that fuels the Chinese industrial machine. A disruption in the Persian Gulf means an immediate, catastrophic energy crisis in Beijing. Xi Jinping has already fortified the People's Liberation Army Navy for precisely this kind of asymmetric economic warfare. If American carriers choke off the strait, China might retaliate not in the Middle East, but in the South China Sea, blockading Taiwan and daring the stretched American military to fight a two-front war. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin views the survival of Tehran as essential to distracting the West from Eastern Europe. Russian intelligence and cyber warfare divisions would almost certainly launch unprecedented attacks on American critical infrastructure. Imagine the financial sector, power grids and communication networks plunging into darkness as retaliation. Furthermore, Moscow could flood the region with advanced hypersonic anti-ship missiles, placing them directly into the hands of surviving proxy militias, turning the Gulf into a graveyard for Western naval vessels. This is exactly the terrifying nightmare scenario wargamers at the Pentagon have dreaded for decades. The domino effect of a preemptive strike on Iran extends far beyond the borders of the Middle East. It shatters the fragile illusion of nuclear deterrence and plunges the world into a multipolar free-for-all where the old rules of engagement no longer apply. Every regional power with a grievance will see the chaos as a green light to violently settle old scores. Ultimately, the absolute destruction of the Iranian nuclear apparatus might secure a temporary tactical victory for Jerusalem and Washington, but the strategic fallout will be apocalyptic. We are standing on the literal precipice of a third global conflict, one fought not just with boots on the ground, but with cyber weapons, economic blockades, and hypersonic technology. The geopolitical chessboard is fully set, the pieces are moving, and the next move could permanently ignite the entire modern world and change human history forever.